Hello students, this is Professor Sansom and I am going to give you some information about the 11 solution problem that you guys are going to be working on this week in lab or in our virtual labs. First of all, the learning objectives for today, planning experiments to efficiently identify unknowns. So thinking about if I have all of these different chemicals, how can I figure out how to identify them, separate them from each other, find evidence to support those claims, and then also figuring out what are the products, reasoning about what are the identity of the products based on what you observe at the macroscopic level. So again, you're transferring sort of between the things that you observe in lab and then the symbolic notation that we use to write about them in chemical equations. You'll also be asked to draw and interpret molecular level diagrams depicting ionic equations or complete ionic equations. And we'll go over that in case you don't remember from Chem 105. So writing chemical equations, the molecular, complete ionic, and net ionic equations is another important goal for today. So as a reminder, several things that are signs of chemical reactions. Color changes, the formation of a gas, the formation of a precipitate. Usually a precipitate is a solid and it settles to the bottom of the test tube, but sometimes it'll just look like a cloudy solution. And you'll see that in the video of the experiment today. And then finally, the disappearance or dissolution of a precipitate can also be a sign of a chemical reaction. So as you're watching the video today, you're going to be writing down your own observations about what happens when they do each of the experiments. You will be using a solubility table. This is similar to the one in your lab manual, but it's arranged a little bit differently so that if you look sort of over here in this corner, we've got kind of all the things that are insoluble. And then most of the stuff over here is soluble, so you get kind of like this big chunk in the middle where everything is soluble. And then there's a couple of things around the corners that are weird, like here we've got some gas formation reactions. This one turns cloudy, this one makes a dark metal. And so the weird stuff is kind of around the edges. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you to just remember these things. But I think the best way to really think about and understand it is just to work through developing the flow chart for the experiment yourself. Obviously, because we're going to be giving you a video where the TAs had to go through and choose to follow a particular flow chart, you won't be able to follow your flow chart that you make for the experiment. But the act of making the flow chart is going to help you think about all of these chemical reactions and what their properties are and how you can identify the different things. So that's going to help you when you get to the exam and you might have to, for example, provide evidence to support a claim that you're making about the identity of one of the solutions. So the reason we're talking about precipitation tests is because this is one of the three main types of tests that are going to happen in the lab today. So let's do a little practice problem. Let's say you need to identify or separate silver nitrate, hydrochloric acid, and sodium carbonate. How would you do it using just the tests that are available here in this solubility table? So take a minute and think about that. Go ahead and pause the video while you do that. Okay, so hopefully you came up with, well, if I react hydrochloric acid and sodium carbonate, I should end up getting bubbles of CO2 gas. And hopefully you also came up with, if I react my silver nitrate with HCl, I'm going to get a precipitate, a white precipitate. And it turns out if I react my silver nitrate with sodium carbonate, I get a green precipitate of silver carbonate. So you can tell them apart based on their properties also, in addition to just that a precipitate forms, also what color it is. Okay, so let's think about writing chemical equations. there's three types of equations that we're going to write. One of them is called the molecular equation or a balanced chemical equation. It's sort of the way that you're used to seeing equations. It has everything in it. Everything is written with the regular chemical formulas. It will have states of matter. And then we have an ionic equation and a net ionic equation. And the reason that we have these other types of equations is because the ionic equation is going to show you how substances actually appear in solution. So we should be able to come over here and see this little demonstration. And in this demonstration, we've got some sodium chloride and we've got some sugar. So if we do sugar and we shake it down into the water, we can see the sugar molecules separate from the other sugar molecules, but they don't actually dissociate. So the molecules themselves don't break apart. So if we were writing this in an equation, we would write the chemical formula for sucrose and then we would put aqueous after it because the sugar molecules got dissolved in the water. But if we do this for sodium chloride, something different actually happens. Not only does the sodium chloride dissolve, meaning it spreads out in the water, right? It also dissociates, meaning that the positive sodium ions separate from the negative chloride ions and they float around separately in solution. So in this case, if we were writing this in an ionic equation, we would want to have Na plus aqueous and Cl minus aqueous. Two separate things because in solution they're actually separate from each other. Okay, so now rules that you can use to sort of think about how this happens as you're going from the full molecular equation to the ionic equation are that some things stay together and some things ionize or dissociate or break apart. And in this category, we've got soluble ionic compounds, strong acids, and strong bases. And in the stay together category, we have everything else. So this includes solids, liquids, and gases. So anything that has an S, L, or G in its little state of matter. Covalent molecules like the sugar that we saw, it would be aqueous, but it doesn't separate into pieces. And then complex ions and polyatomic ions are also in this category. And so you'll see some of those in some of the equations that you're doing today. And then finally, after we have the ionic equation, we have the net ionic equation, which is similar except it deletes the spectator ions. Spectator ions are those that appear on both sides of the equation. So sodium ions, for example, are frequently found in solution and they're there in the reactants and they're there in the products, but they're still just floating around in solution not doing anything, so those are called spectator ions. So let's work out an example here. This is an example of mixing iron 3 hydroxide, which is a red solid, with 6 molar hydrochloric acid. And so I've written the balanced chemical equation here. So you can see we've got our solid FeOH3, we've got our HCl, we have this complex ion, so in brackets is our complex ion, and it has a -1 charge. It's FeCl4 minus, and so it has 1 proton that's attached to it to balance out that charge. And then we've got 3 molecules of water. So go ahead and take a minute and write out for yourself what you think the ionic equation is and what the net ionic equation is. Pause the video for a minute and then you can come back. Okay, so writing out our balanced ionic equation, this is thinking about what does it actually appear, how does it actually appear in solution. So that's why we're doing this. So our FeOH3 solid, in fact, is going to just stay the same. So we'll have FeOH3 solid. Because it's a solid, it's not dissociated in the water, it's not dissolved in the water. Now HCl is a strong acid. So here we'll have 4 H pluses and 4 Cl minuses. And then in our products, we're going to keep our complex ion together, but we're going to separate the two pieces here, the counter ion. So we'll have one H plus, and then we'll have our complex ion FeCl4 minus, that's aqueous. And then we'll have 3 water molecules because it's liquid. They don't dissociate, so we'll keep them together. So that's our complete balanced ionic equation, or the complete ionic equation. Now moving to the net ionic equation, the thing that we want to do is eliminate any spectator ions. So these have to appear the same on both sides of the equation. And the only one that we have here is our H plus. We have 4 H pluses over here, and we have 1 H plus over here. Oopsie. Oopsie, again. Okay. I maybe not be able to cancel that out. So we'll just write it again at the bottom. It's going to be the same here, except we're going to eliminate one of those H pluses. So this will be 3 H pluses. 4 Cl minuses still are required. And here we're not going to have that H plus, but we will have our FeCl4 minus and 3 H2O liquid. So that's our balanced ionic and net ionic equation. So everything we talked about so far was about our precipitation reactions. Now, the second kind of thing we're going to be doing is looking at the gases that are formed. One of the tests that they do during the experiment is a test for ammonia gas. Ammonia is actually a base, and so if you put a wet piece of pH paper on top of the test tube, it will turn green or blue because of that NH3 gas reacting with the water that's on the pH paper. And so you'll see that in the video. The third kind of test that they're going to do in the video is the flame test. So I'm sorry that you guys don't get to do this because it's fun, obviously. But as a reminder from Chem 105, each element has a unique flame color, and it has to do with the arrangement of electrons and the energy level. So in our experiment, we've got barium, which makes a light sort of yellow-green. This is the color that they've got here from barium chloride, but it can also look sort of like an apple yellow-green color, so a little bit more on the yellow side of green. And we'll also have potassium, and potassium makes this violet flame, kind of a peachy pink purple color. And then sodium has this orange flame, and pretty much everything is going to end up turning this color when it's on fire. So it's not super distinctive to identify anything else. In our experiment, the barium and the potassium are pretty distinctive, and you should be able to recognize those. The other ones are all just going to look kind of orange-yellow. So the last thing for our pre-lab is just to think about the observations you're making and the evidence statements that you're going to provide to support your conclusions. So each solution that you identify, you have to have 2 pieces of evidence for each solution, and you should try to have evidences that are like more unique. So for example, 8 of the 11 solutions have a pH that's basically neutral, so that's not a really great evidence to identify it. So try to find the ones that are most unique. And then in terms of the evidence that you're providing, I just want to point out the characteristics here. There's sort of 3 pieces that are happening in this statement. When I added NH3, a white precipitate formed. Okay, so the first thing is you say what you did. You added NH3. That's the thing that you did that caused the change to happen, the chemical change to happen. And then you're going to tell us about what was formed, and you want to be precise. So you're going to tell us a color. And then you're going to tell us, for example, here, this is like the state of matter. It's a precipitate. It could be a complex ion. So you would say a complex ion, a yellow complex ion formed. So if we go back to our previous slide where we were looking at this complex ion formation here with our iron 3 hydroxide, we actually have a red solid at the beginning. That's the iron 3 hydroxide. At the end, our FeCl4 minus is actually a yellow complex ion. So if we were writing an evidence statement for this, we might say something like, when I added hydrochloric acid, the red solid dissolved and a yellow complex ion formed. So note that I said what I did and then what happened, both the color and the state of matter. So those are the evidence statements that you need. And that is the end of this pre-lab video. So good luck today. Make sure you meet with your lab partner to try to do the lab together. Having that ability to discuss it is going to be helpful for you to just do a good job with the report. And thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.